Hello everyone, it is I, the Witch of Paint. This week I am once again doing a zodiac fairy painting, and this time it is Aries. From the little research I did before I started the drawing, I gathered that Aries is a fire zodiac. The zodiac is considered the first of the cycle and governs the period from around 21st of March to around about the 19th of April. So we are just about in time with this zodiac fairy painting. And it's a bit funny that the first zodiac of the cycle is actually the third one I have painted now. Things happen this way apparently, lol. The animal of this zodiac is the ram, which is why in German we call this sign Widder. Because Widder in German means ram, as does Aries. Aries is Latin for ram. The ruling planet of the zodiac sign is Mars, and so this fairy will be standing on a sort of Mars-inspired surface. I'll also attempt to draw her in a slightly more rounded body type, because I don't want all of these zodiac fairies to have very similar body types. So that's why I'm drawing her like this, and also because I thought it would be fun to do something a little different, you know? Other than that, she also gets the curvy horns that rams have, and a large focus of this fairy is also going to be fire, because the element of this zodiac sign is fire, and I thought, let's make life hard for myself and create lighting situations that are going to be fun to paint, but also a bit difficult. Anyways, now that you know what this painting is going to be, let's talk about the myth behind Aries. Luckily, Zeus is not in this one, which is great for me because I can't read more of his creepy stuff. But obviously, this is Greek mythology, so things are going to get messy regardless. But before we get into this, let me apologize in advance about any names I mispronounce in this video. I'm not a professional Greek mythology girl. I just kind of like reading about stuff like this. So, this story begins in a Boeotian city called Orchomenos, which lies in the southeast of Greece. The king has remarried, and he's already got 2 children. Twins, in fact. These kids are called Phrixus and Helle. Really nice kids, actually, but their stepmother does not like them. Maybe because they're not her kids, I don't exactly know, but it is very clear that we are going to go for the centuries-old evil stepmother wants to get rid of her kids trope. Obviously, the question now for her is, how is she going to get rid of her kids? Legally. Because, you know, she's queen and she's kind of married to the dad of these 2 kids and she doesn't want him to be angry with her. So she comes up with a seriously elaborate plan to make sure that she gets rid of them, but legally. She makes sure all the wheat crops fail and basically puts the land to the brink of a famine, just so someone would be sent to Delphi to consult the oracle. And then she bribes the guy who went to Delphi and basically tells him, yeah, okay, so when you get back, you're not going to tell the truth to them, you're going to tell them that the oracle said the 2 royal kids should be sacrificed to the gods to make the famine go away. Okay? Okay. Great mythology. Why? Just why? Anyways, luckily the actual mother of Phrixus and Helle, the cloud nymph Nephili, hears of this, and she sends them a winged ram with golden wool that would take them away. So the 2 children climb on, and off they go on the journey to another kingdom, which was Colchis? Oh god, I don't know how to pronounce this. However, during the journey, Helle fell off the ram and drowned. Rest in peace, Helle. Why did you have to kill a Greek mythology? Doesn't this ram have seat belts? Wait, that wasn't a concept in ancient times, was it? Anyway, back when Helle fell into the ocean, it was called Dardanelles, but after this it was renamed to Hellespont, or the Sea of Hell, to commemorate her, which on one hand is kind of sweet, because they renamed it in her memory. On the other hand, there's no way that someone flew an actual ram across the ocean, so why the renaming? And I did only read this renaming thing in one article. The others just straight up call it Hellespont. But it's still weird that it was named after her, considering it was just a story. I'll leave the source down below. Maybe I'll look into it more when I have the time, but I didn't really have the time this week. I had a lot of other things going on as well. I will leave the sources either way. So, his sister basically fell into the ocean, and Phrixus is now alone on his journey, and he's completing it, and arrives in Colchis, and is all alone, and he decides, as one does, that in order to thank his mother for her gift and for saving his life, at least, not his sister's, because his sister died in the accident, tragically, but he decides he's going to sacrifice the ram to the gods for this. Which, the irony. Phrixus and Helle used this ram to escape being sacrificed to the gods, and then he decides to sacrifice the ram that saved him from the sacrifice to the gods. Have we learned nothing, Phrixus? Sacrifices are scary, especially if you're the one being sacrificed. Huh? Anyway, this is basically the origin of the Golden Fleece, the very same that pops up in the story of Jason and the Argonauts, which I won't go into here because this is not about Jason, this is about Aries. Phrixus presents this fleece to the king Aeetes. Oh god, I don't know if I pronounced that right. To the king Aeetes of Colchis, who in return gives him the hand of his daughter. Not literally just the hand, I mean like in marriage. Her name is, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Chalciope? It's a bit sad that Phrixus is the only one that gets it happily ever after in this. Because let's face it, Chalciope will have no choice but to marry him, thanks to the way that they did things back then in the ancient times. I'm going to assume that they lived a happy life with lots of kids, because the alternative would be not nice. Moving on from that creepy myth, let's talk about some other facts about Aries. As I've mentioned before at the start of the video, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac cycle, and therefore it also marks the beginning of the astrological year and the beginning of spring. Because of this, it symbolizes growth and renewal, as the days are getting longer and warmer, or at least warmer in some cases. Not to complain, but here on the west coast of Ireland, while we have had a few warm days, we have had a lot more cold and stormy days. Then again, this is the west coast of Ireland, what did I expect? But I really want to have some more warmth here, Aries, if you could, please. Thank you. And also, as I've mentioned at the start, the Latin word Aries does actually mean ram as well, but I guess the English-speaking countries just didn't bother translating it when there's already a cool-sounding Latin names for them. I'm curious to hear what you guys call them in your language. Do they get translated into your language like the Germans had them translated, or do you use their Latin names like the English? I'm very curious to know that. And can I just mention how weird it is that people keep saying flying winged ram, but then the pictures of a ram doesn't actually have any wings in the stories? Like, so far I have not seen an actual ram with wings. Are they just invisible guys? I should have drawn a ram with wings, honestly. That would have been very cool. That would have been a very cool pose for her. Anyways, I found a little bit of an origin story for our ram and a name. This is according to the Roman poet Ovid. Apparently, according to the one article I read about this, don't quote me on this, but I thought it was interesting, and even though I don't really have a lot of time in this video for all of this, I do want to kind of go a little bit into this story for our ram, because he's the one in the sky, so why not, you know? Links to the source down below, of course. The ram is called, a difficult name to pronounce, I'm going to try my best, Chrysomalos. Chrysomalos. He is the son of Poseidon, god of sea, and Theophane, daughter of Bisaltis, who was a son of Helios and Gaia, so she's like the granddaughter of the sun and the earth? Cool, I guess? Anyways, why did Theophane and Poseidon have a child that was a ram? Because they decided to have some fun as animals. Anyways, we're not going into that. Greek mythology is weird. But this ram's golden fleece, as I said, was eventually put into a sacred grove to Aries, and then Jason would be sent to steal, retrieve it, obviously. He's not going to just steal it. Definitely not. Also, I just realized the ram is a son of Poseidon, and it flies, and yet it's a fire zodiac, not a water or air zodiac. This doesn't make any sense. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about the painting. Since I decided to make her fire-themed, I had a lot of fun struggling with the lighting, as you might have been able to tell throughout the video. And I did actually forget at one point that the horns also need the lighting on them, but oh well. I knew that since the fairy would be mostly fire-themed, I would go with reds and yellows mostly for her, but I also wanted there to be enough contrast to avoid the fairy looking like a big yellow blob, like she did at the start. But that was just the base layer, sort of like an underlayer, so to speak. Anyways, I wanted the brightest parts of her to be the wings, since they should be made of literal fire, or at least look like it, so I wanted those to be very glowy. And with the dress, I just had a little bit of fun. Somewhere on Pinterest, it mentioned that the flowers of Aries are tulips, so I attempted to make the skirt slightly mimic a tulip, but sort of have it frayed at the edges because of fire. The sleeves also have a little fray to it. That's also because she's a fairy, and I kind of thought it would look a little cool. In the dress itself, I wanted the top to be really dark, like the top of a skirt, not the top bodice thing. I mean the top of a skirt to be like dark and then go into like the reds and yellows. That's sort of what I wanted to do with it. So I did do a couple of layers of that, and I also kind of wanted it dark at the top of the skirt because I was going to try and put the constellation on it. The constellation of Aries is, well, I wouldn't say unexciting, but it didn't look like much. But I could sort of see how it could be like the body and maybe the legs of a ram flying about. But you'd probably need the other stars in the sky to see it, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen Aries in the sky myself. I don't actually look for constellations because at the times when the sky is dark and there's stars there, I'm usually asleep. Anyways, I also gave her a little choke necklace with a carnelian crystal in the center, as that was also something that I saw associated with Aries. But because I didn't want to repeat my pattern of putting huge, enormous crystals in the background, just because, I mean, it might have looked pretty, but I've also already got the Mars surface, which is already very red, so it's all going to blend in anyway. So I decided against it and decided to just give her a necklace with a crystal, just a tiny little crystal, also because the stone looked very, very pretty, and I thought, you know, this would make a very beautiful crystal necklace kind of thing. As for her hair, I wanted it to be really curly, like the flames of the fire. And her skin I made darker, since everything else in this drawing was already bright, and dark skin would get me the nicest contrast between the darks and the lights. Same for the sky, I basically did the sort of light glow around her wings, but the rest of the sky would be dark, and I also tried to do that with the background, the rock there. I did keep that a little vague, just because I wanted the focus to be her, and not the background, as so many other things. And now, before you come at me because her pose isn't exciting or something, because she's just standing there, and it's not really cool or anything, I didn't want her to have an exciting pose, okay? I wanted the focus to be the colours and the lighting. I wanted to have fun with those two things. I didn't bother thinking about a creative pose for her. I just wanted her to have cool lighting and cool colours and nice contrast with those. So don't come at me because a pose isn't exciting or anything. Because honestly, it doesn't need to be. You know? Of course, towards the end, I also bring out my metallic watercolors and go over the wings to make them shiny and more fire-like, because I love the metallic watercolors, don't you know? Anyways, we're pretty much done now, so let's look at the final result together. Can I just say how much I love her dress? I think I really did a phenomenal job with the colours of this. Also, just overall, I mean, I used to not be that good at drawing people with this particular body type, but I think this turned out great. Hands could be a bit better, but we'll ignore that. So, now that you've seen me draw another body type, do you think I did a good job? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. Check out my socials down below, and maybe take a look at my Twitch account as well. I am the Witch of Paint, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye!